I'm James Foster, the Carr Professor of International Affairs and Professor of Economics here at the Elliott School of International Affairs. I have the pleasure and honor of welcoming to the Elliott School all of you, and to George Washington University as well, here in the heart of Washington, D.C., for today's special event on the U.S. ROK alliance after the U.S. election. To discuss this important and timely issue, we are most fortunate to have an intellectual giant, a remarkable public servant, and a special friend, Dr. Park Jin, former Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Republic of Korea. I first met Minister Park when he was a newly elected member of Parliament in the 16th National Assembly in Korea. My student, Benjamin Yoon, who is here with us today, made the initial introduction. And then again, in the summer of 2024, some 20 years later, Benjamin convened a private lunch meeting in Seoul with family and colleagues in attendance. Everyone present, including GW economics professor Irene Foster, yes, there's a relationship, was spellbound by the tales that Minister Park told us of his time in government, and also by his deep insights into the relationship between our two nations. We imagined how our students and colleagues back in DC would benefit from his experience and wisdom. We extended an invitation, and we were very pleased when he agreed to join us. So here we sit, gathered at the Elliott School in this most strategic of locations between the State Department and the White House, adjoining two great Bretton Woods institutions, the World Bank and the IMF, in the George Washington University, a university linked to both our nation's first presidents. Here we are, another receptive audience about to be spellbound again. Thank you, Minister Park, for being with us and sharing your insights on this important topic. Now, before turning the dais over to my colleague, Associate Dean Nick Lenortas, to formally welcome you to the Elliott School, I'd like to offer thanks to some of the folks who have made today's events possible. First, the GW co-sponsors of the event, the GW Institute for Korean Studies, or GWICS, and its director, Celeste Arrington, who will also moderate today's event, the Institute for International Economic Policy, or IIEP, and its director, Remy Jedwab, and the East Asia National Resource Center, or NRC, here at the Elliott School. Second, we extend warm thanks to our external sponsor, the Korea Foundation, and Director Sung Won-bae, for the many ways the Foundation has helped make today's event possible. Now, allow me to introduce Professor Nicholas von Orvis, the Associate Dean for Research Initiatives at the Elliott School, who will extend greetings from the Dean's Office and other messages. Like me, Nick is an economist, but with a particularly intense interest in the role of technology in economic advancement. In addition to his service in the Dean's Office, Nick directs the Institute for International Science and Technology Policy at the Elliott School, holds a chaired position in Brazil, edits a main journal in his field, and consults with governments, all while being a prolific author. Welcome, Nick. The floor is yours.
Thank you. It's something much bigger than it is. I'm a humble professor here at GW, and I serve as Associate Dean now. I want to say that we are delighted to have such an excellency in our school. These times are very challenging for everyone around the world. I was reminded the other day that a couple of years ago, I think, The Economist had a special issue that was called the reluctant hegemon. In that case, they were discussing Germany, and it was the reluctant Germany as a reluctant hegemon of Europe. Now the United States remains the hegemon of the globe, at least as far as we think it is. However, it looks like increasingly, I think, abroad, definitely in Europe that I know very well, but also in East Asia, which I know fairly well, and particularly in Korea, where I have many friends. Also in those places across the two oceans, the United States looks like a reluctant hegemon, right? And I think this is the way this discussion will go, because we just had an election, an extremely important election, and this election will determine the next 4 years the way the United States will behave internationally, right? We really hope, in many respects, we consider, of course, Korea as one of our greatest friends. This is exactly how I describe Korea in my classes. And I want to tell you, in my introductory class on science and technology policy, as James said, that I teach at the master's level, I have the last 3 lectures, the discussion out of an OECD report, which is the science and technology policy at the times of the challenging times, right, of change. And thus one can look at these international relations from many different points of view. My take is science, technology, innovation, where Korea excels, and thus I will be looking forward to see the remarks of Dr. Park on this issue. Without further ado, I don't want to take the time. We have a distinguished guest here, and we all are looking forward to hear from him. So I will call James.
Well, I have a couple of biographies here. But you know what? You can read them. They're in the announcement. I will only say that Celeste Harrington is the director of the Korea Foundation. The Korea Foundation Associate Professor of Political Science, International Affairs, and Director of the Institute for Korea Studies at George Washington University. And I'll let you look at the rest yourself. And our guest, main guest, I'm sorry, everyone knows you. Please tell us what you know. Come on. Great to see you, Professor Dr. Park Jin, the 40th Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Republic of Korea, 4-term member of the National Assembly representing the Central Jeongdo District in Seoul for 10 years in the 16th, 17th, and 18th sessions. In 2020, Dr. Park returned to politics to serve his 4th term in the 24th session after working in academia for 8 years. So we're very much looking forward to your comments. So please join us here at the podium.
Well, good morning. My name is Park Jin, former Foreign Minister of Korea. And now I'm affiliated with KAIST, the Korea's Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, as Assistant Dean Nicholas Donortas has mentioned. I'm very grateful to all the leaders of the George Washington University, especially Elliott School of International Affairs and the Korean Center, for arranging this event for me and for the participants. I think this is a very timely event and also significant opportunity for us to exchange our views on evolving Korea-U.S. alliance. I'm grateful to Dr. James Foster, who is my good friend, whom I have known for more than 20 years, ever since I was a first-time elected politician in my hometown, Jeongdo. We met again, recently in Seoul. I know Professor James Foster has been contributing to the academia and also the real world by inventing a unified approach to measuring poverty and inequality. And I think that there is no country perhaps in the world that has experienced the poverty and inequality perhaps after the devastating war in the Korean Peninsula, and now has achieved a phenomenal economic growth to be able to contribute to the world as much as we have received international assistance. So thank you very much. I know you are doing research on equality now, and how to measure equality. Perhaps it will be more difficult than measuring inequality, but I'm very grateful to your continuous research. Assistant Dean Nicholas Bonor-Tas, thank you very much for your kind words. And now that I'm affiliated with Korea's MIT, I would love to exchange our views on Korea-U.S. scientific and technological cooperation, which is very important. We are now tech ally. We used to be military ally, economic ally, now tech ally.
Sure.
Okay, and Dr. Celeste Arrington, thank you very much for your interest in Korea and also guiding the research and the programs about my country. Thank you very much. And Deputy Director Young-Ho Kim, over there. Nice to meet you again, and thank you very much for your warm hospitality. And then Ms. Rabina Yugyal, the Program Manager, and Kyle Rena, Mr. Kyle Rena, Associate Director. Well, thank you, everyone. Now, I'm going to share my thought with you for about half an hour, 40 minutes, and I'll be very happy to respond to your questions or comments. But let me say a little bit about George Washington University, as you know very well. This university is widely recognized for its highest level of excellence in research, teaching, and international programs. And this location of the university, which is at the center of the Washington, D.C., the center of the world politics, close to the White House, the State Department, and the Congress, I think is very unique. The university has established a strong reputation for producing and cultivating many distinguished leaders in government, public service, business, and international community, and science and technology. Many Korean diplomats and government officers, scholars have studied here, contributing significantly to the development of Korea-U.S. partnership. Especially, the university has focused on Korea-focused conferences, research projects, academic exchanges, strengthening mutual understanding and cooperation. So I thank you, the George Washington University, for consistently being engaged in the research and teaching on Korea and Korea-U.S. partnership, and now Korea's global contribution to the world. Seungman Rhee, whom you know very well, was our founding president, who happened to study in this GWU in 1905, almost 120 years ago. I think that the time was very harsh period for Korea. We are almost losing our country to the fierce competition, geopolitical competition among the neighboring countries, Korea, Japan, China, and Russia. And Seungman Rhee, who learned English in Daeje High School and also here in the GW, he thought that Korean independence, self-determination, and liberal democracy will be the future of Korea. And I think that that's the result of the education at GW University, that he would later become the founding president of the Republic of Korea. Now, I heard a story about the first encounter between Syngman Rhee and the president of GW, whose name I remember was Charles Needham, in 1905, who interviewed Syngman Rhee, and obviously he was very impressed with a 29-year-old young man from Korea. The name was Chosun, the country of morning come, which was in decline and was faced with a crisis. So he thought, oh, this young gentleman is very talented, and he might have a future, not only for himself, but also for his own country. And I think that President Charles Needham's perception was quite correct, that he later became the leader of our country, opened the first modern government after the liberation from Japan in 1948, and ruled the country. Syngman Rhee's legacy in Korea includes anti-communism, land reform, universal voting rights, compulsory education, empowerment of women, fostering talented elites by sending them to the United States, industrial rebuilding, introduction of nuclear technology, shaping the path of the modern Korean governance. The creation of the Korea-U.S. alliance, the alliance between the Republic of Korea and the United States after the devastating Korean War in 1953, was the historic achievement of President Syngman Rhee. I think it was a brainchild of President Syngman Rhee that we have this thriving ROK-US alliance for more than 70 years. The name is Mutual Defense Treaty. Now, the striking thing is that the day after this treaty was signed by our Foreign Minister Byung Young-tae and American Foreign Minister John Foster Dulles, President Syngman Rhee said, "This marks the most significant progress in our independence history. And the impact will be eternal. And our posterity will enjoy the multitude of benefits through generations to come." I think this is a very insightful comment by the architect of Korea-US alliance, which is a shining testament to his predictions, and it's a gold standard alliance in the history of the alliance. But this has survived 7 decades, and I think we have future relationship based on this alliance coming up. So this university has produced and educated a number of Korean diplomats, government officials, business leaders following in Syngman Rhee's footsteps. These leaders who had education in GW University gained the vision and the skills needed to navigate and strengthen ROK-US relations and to pursue statecraft, running the country for success and prosperity, and continue to contribute across government, business, art, science, academia, and further enhancing this important bilateral relationship. Now, the Yoon Suk-yeol government in the Republic of Korea now has strengthened, as you know, the ROK-US alliance during the last 2 years, based on the GPS vision. And I hope you can remember the word GPS after this lecture. You can forget everything. But GPS, it's not global positioning system, but it means global pivotal state initiative and the vision, which means that Korea will play a central role, pivotal role to contribute to the freedom, peace, and prosperity of the world, because we have experienced how important it is to have the freedom, how important it is to maintain peace on the Korean Peninsula, and how to develop a prosperous country more than any other countries. So we have the experience, maybe trials and errors, but we want to share our experience with many countries in the world, and perhaps to contribute to the future freedom, peace, and prosperity of the world. So it's called GPS. And actually, GPS, Global Positioning System, means it tells you where you are. You all have a GPS in your mobile phones. And it also tells you where you are going. So Korean foreign policy, equipped with a GPS vision, will tell us where we are and where we are going. I explained this to American Secretary of State Tony Blinken 2 years ago when I first met him as a foreign minister. And I said, look, we have the GPS. And I explained the concept like this, and Secretary Blinken said, oh, Park Jin, I think it fits into our American foreign policy. Can I borrow it? So I said, yes, as long as you recognize intellectual property. Yes, I'll be very happy to share with you our GPS foreign policy diplomacy. Now, building on this forward-looking GPS initiative, the Yoon Suk-yeol government elevated the ROK U.S. alliance to global, comprehensive, strategic partnership. This is the longest name of our relationship with any foreign country. Global, comprehensive, strategic partnership. And each word has its meaning. Before, Korea-US alliance was confined to the security issues on the Korean Peninsula, and primarily to deter and counter the North Korean security threats, which is the main reason for creating this alliance. But now, over the 70 years, the alliance has evolved. It is still in the process of evolution from a military alliance to economic alliance based on Korea-US Free Trade Agreement, which went into effect in 2012, which I had the honor to pass in the Korean National Assembly as the chairman of Foreign Affairs and Trade Committee. And now we are entering the period of technological alliance between the two countries. This is an amazing alliance, global, comprehensive, strategic alliance, which encompasses close cooperation between the two countries in security, economy, technology, and humanitarian efforts. So, the United States now recognizes South Korea as a more essential ally, critical ally, not just one of the allies, unique ally. And South Korea has gained greater opportunities to play a pivotal role in the international community alongside the United States. One of my close friend and scholar, Ramon Pacheco Pardo, who is teaching at King's College London, he recently wrote a book titled Shrimp to Whale. I know you know the title. Korea was traditionally regarded as a shrimp which had its back broken among the fight of the whales. The whales mean, of course, the big countries around us, China, Russia, and Japan. But that shrimp has grown into a dolphin and now a whale, without us even aware of that. So I think that's an amazing title. And now, based on that phenomenal economic success of Korea, we are being able to play a pivotal role in the world. We are very proud of it, we are very honored to do it, and we feel greater responsibility to do our service for the future of international community. And this collaboration between Korea and the United States enables both countries to address peace and security issues, not just on the Korean Peninsula, as I mentioned, but in the Indo-Pacific region and on a global scale. Korea and the United States share the Pacific Ocean. There's a big ocean in between two of us, and you know Pacific means peaceful. And in order to make the Pacific Ocean genuinely Pacific, you need to have the peace and security efforts by the countries it encompasses. And Republic of Korea is one of the major contributor to that peace and security in the region. I mentioned the Mutual Defense Treaty, which was signed in 1953, 3 years before I was born, and which has survived more than 70 years. Now, this alliance has enabled the United States to support Korea's political democratization. We had an authoritarian period of our own politics in the 1970s and 1980s in Korea. I myself, as a student in the Seoul National University, protested against the authoritarian rule myself. In 1987, we had a constitutional revision to make it possible for people to elect president directly. 1987 constitutional amendment, United States supported it. Today, Korea is a vibrant democracy. We are now hosting the Summit for Democracy in the World. Last year, we hosted this summit with the United States, Korea, Netherlands, Costa Rica, Zambia, in all different continents. We invited government leaders from all over the world to come to Seoul and talk about the issues and the potentials of developing democracy in the world. So Korea is contributing in that area. And it is all possible because the United States is our close ally. We should strive for better future based on our diplomacy. And second is economic growth. Our per capita income right after the Korean War was $67. When I was born, it was around $67, less than 100 definitely. We had to rebuild our nation from scratch through post-war rehabilitation and 5-year economic plans. The United States provided economic support, provided flour to eat for people to address food shortages as part of comprehensive financial aid program to rebuild South Korea's heavily damaged industrial facilities. The United States had played a significant role in South Korea's rapid economic growth, particularly through technology transfer, as well as economic assistance and investment in such areas as electronics, semiconductors, and the automotive industry. South Korea's economy was transformed into a dynamic, export-oriented economy in the 1970s and the 1980s. Major Korean companies like Samsung, Hyundai, LG, and SK were able to expand globally by entering the U.S. market and strengthening economic ties between the two countries. This is also the time when the construction of the apartment flats was vigorously implemented for the housing of the growing population in the country. Now, Korean population is actually shrinking now because of the lowest birth rate of the country in the world. But at the time, 1970s and 80s, population grew, and we had to accommodate this growing population through our apartment flats. In 1970s, we had our first kind of national car like Korea's Volkswagen, the name of which was Pony. You know, the pony, the small horse. Everyone was very jealous of your neighbors when they have pony. I should have pony too, if they have pony. If they live in an apartment, I should live in an apartment. Because those are the symbols of middle class, to have pony and live in an apartment. And then in 1970s, we had a new car called Sonata. You remember Sonata, which was selling well in the United States. I came to this country in 1983 to study in Cambridge, Massachusetts. At the time, the new car was Excel. You remember? That was a very popular car, Excel. Now, it's not a computer program, that's the name of the car. And then we had the Seoul Olympics in 1988. There was a watershed of Korean economic growth and global outreach. I remember in 1988, when we had the Seoul Olympics, our per capita income was $5,000. So it has grown from 67 in 1950 to 5,000 in 1988. So we called it the miracle on Han River. 한강의 기적, miracle on Han River. Okay, if you live in Seoul, you cannot avoid 한강. 한강 is everywhere. It's bigger than Thames River or Seine River, the width. And then if you look at 한강, apartment flats are lined up all around. Now in Korea, more than half of the population live in apartment flats. So you cannot avoid 한강 and apartment flats. So it's not surprising when you have a new song, 아파트, like Blackpink and Bruno Mars. And these days, apartments are going up higher because you have no land to build housing, so it's going higher and higher. So we have Korea has invented size, Gangnam Style, and then we have invented Squid Game through our Netflix, Squid Game, and then 아파트. The game is going up higher and higher. Okay, in Squid Game, if you get caught, you get killed. So it's serious. But in 아파트, if you get caught, you have to drink soju, which is okay. So stay tuned to the next invention of Korean wave. But anyway, oh, by the way, the name of the new Nobel Literature Prize winner's name is Han River. So this year is a very lucky year for Korea. We had a Nobel Literary Prize and also the music 한강. In the 1990s, Korean economy grew through globalization. And I remember I was a young press secretary in the Blue House, serving President Kim Il-sung. He proclaimed that Korea is now going global. Not just confined to the Korean peninsula, but we are going global. And IT and the semiconductor industry boomed in the 1990s, and which all contributed to the Korea's economic growth. And then, in the year 2000 and 2010, we had our per capita income of $11,000 in the year 2000. I remember, because in 1999 it was exactly $10,000. And then we began to go up over $10,000. And then in year 2020, the 2010, it was $22,000. In 2020, it was $33,000. So this rapid economic growth and the successful Korean economy wouldn't have been possible without Korea's hard work, spirit of innovation, will to succeed, can-do spirit, and education, plus Korea-U.S. alliance. And in year 2012, the Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement went into effect. As I mentioned, I had a chance to deliberate on this agreement and pass it in the National Assembly. Now, at the time when we discussed whether to endorse the agreement or not, pass it in the National Assembly, there were opposition too. They were concerned that if Korea and the United States sign this chorus agreement, then Korea will become the appendix to the American economy, with the opposition argument. But what happened is that when this agreement went into effect, trade and investment grew by twice, people-to-people exchange grew, and then Korea and the United States become even closer through the win-win arrangement. So I think this is the most successful gold standard of free trade agreement that the world has. The United States also increased its market access to Republic of Korea, of course, and we were forming a mutually beneficial economic relationship. Today, South Korea is almost the 10th largest economy, with a per capita income surpassing that of Japan, with $36,000. This elevated South Korea to the G6 level of personal income, personal GNI, gross national income, next to US, Germany, Britain, France, and Italy. This means that the per capita income of the Republic of Korea multiplied more than 500 times during the last 70 years, which is a world record. And that all happened in my lifespan. The next one is diplomacy. The ROK-US alliance has provided South Korea with a platform, international platform, to play a more prominent role in the world. Close diplomatic relations between Korea and the United States has enabled Korea to amplify our voice in the international stage, such as the United Nations, NATO, WTO, G20, and the APEC. For instance, 2010 G20 summit in Seoul symbolized South Korea's growing influence on the global economic issues. South Korea is now a global partner with the NATO. We are not a member of the NATO, but we are a global partner of NATO. So President Yoon Suk-yeol has been attending the NATO summit as the leader from a global partner in Madrid, Spain, Vilnius, Lithuania, and more recently in Washington, D.C. And we are actively pursuing the G7 diplomacy, G7 plus diplomacy. Now you know which country is G7, but we think that Korea has come to the level comparable to that of G7, and we can contribute to democracy, growth, justice, fairness, human rights, rule of law, and rules-based international order. I think that's the spirit of G7, and Korea can contribute to these efforts. In NATO, we are meeting with Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. These four countries are not members of NATO, but on the sidelines, the four Indo-Pacific countries get together and we discuss our regional issue. And then we, again, explain to the NATO leaders about what is happening in Asia. And also we learn from the perspectives of the European leaders. So NATO is a good stage where European, American, and Asian leaders can sit down and talk to each other to produce synergy. Now Japan. During the last 2 years, Yoon Suk-yeol government has tried our best to normalize and restore our relations with Japan, which has been previously constrained and stagnated because of the history issues, which were very difficult to resolve. And of course, this history issue doesn't go away, but we shouldn't forget. But we have to move forward to the future. So Yoon Suk-yeol government and the Kishida Fumio government in Japan, which is now being replaced with a new government, try to overcome these difficulties based on the core values: democracy, free market, rule of law, so that we can move forward. If France and Germany, after the 2 world wars, could come to terms with each other and become the 2 leading economies in Europe, we thought Korea and Japan do it too. Of course, based on the straightforward interpretation of history and a resolve to move towards the future. So Korea, Japan rapprochement, even though it was difficult, and I think that it contributes to the future of our country and Japan, and for that matter, the United States and the world. Next year is the 60th anniversary of the diplomatic relationship, which was signed in 1965. It's already 60 years. That's a kind of full circle between the 2 countries. So I think it's a special year, and then we should continue this momentum of Korea-Japan partnership. Now, in the area of security, we have the United States troops on the Korean Peninsula. Now, the size of 28,500 young men and women from the United States are contributing to the peace and security of the Republic of Korea vis-a-vis North Korea, which is now increasing its nuclear weapons and missile progress. We tell North Korea that this is the wrong way because their economy is failing. People are starving. Under those adverse situations, squandering all those scarce assets to develop weapons of mass destruction is not only irrational, irresponsible, but also immoral, because that comes at the expense of the greater sufferings of the people and also systematic violation of human rights in North Korea. So we hope that North Korea can make a better decision. Alternative future, I think, is waiting for them if they make the decision. If they make an audacious decision to reorient their country from a military first policy to the people first policy, then Korea will be able to help, will be very willing to help North Korea through our economic, political, diplomatic, corresponding measures to provide a better future for the people in the North. Assistant Dean mentioned Germany. I visited Germany only 3 months before the crumbling down of the Berlin Wall to visit the German Research Institute to discuss when is Germany going to be united, and there was 1989. I think it was July or August. The German expert in unification, when I asked the question, when is Germany going to be unified? The expert said, no, we are actually unified. West Germans can visit East Germany, and East Germans can watch West German broadcasting. We're actually getting people out of East Germany by paying money, the political prisoners. So we are already interactive. And the highest priority of the country is not unification, Wiedervereinigung, but is inflation, housing, unemployment. And the unification is like number 18. So I said, oh, I see. And then the expert told me, maybe Korea will be unified before Germany. So I said, oh, why do you think so? And the German expert told me, because two Koreas are talking about unification. South Koreans say, I want unification, and North Koreans say, I want unification. So to me, it looks like two Koreas are talking about the same thing, whereas East Germany doesn't like unification under Honecker regime. So I said, oh, that's a very unique perspective. We have much more difficulties than you think, because we fought war against each other, unlike two Germanys. And now, North Koreans are developing nuclear weapons. And the countries like Russia, more recently, are backing up North Korea. And North Korea is sending the troops as well as ammunitions and missiles to Ukraine, to Russia, to fight war in Europe. So situation is much more dangerous. However, if we can learn lessons from the German unification, now I'm talking about the future of Korea in terms of unification, if we can learn the important lessons, is that people in North Korea should desire unification themselves, if not the regime, because we cannot enforce our unification upon them. And this is what North Korea thinks, that South Korea would one day absorb North Korea. I think it's almost difficult for any country to absorb the other side. In fact, German unification was not absorption by West Germany. It was a voluntary unification by the people in East Germany, because they wanted freedom of travel and prosperity on the other side. So that's why President Yoon Suk-yeol suggested this August on the Liberation Day, the doctrine, the unification doctrine, that we will encourage people in North Korea to recognize the importance of freedom and prosperity, and we will do our best to help the people in North Korea. I don't know when, but the Berlin Wall came down at a time when no one expected. In fact, on the day of Berlin Wall crumbling down, the West German Chancellor was in Poland to have a summit meeting with the Polish Prime Minister, and he had to hurry back to Berlin because the history is unfolding without political leadership. So who knows what happened in Korea. So we will just be patient, like the Ostpolitik, former West Germany. We will continue to provide chances, opportunities to North Korea to change their course of action. Now, science and technology, very important. I myself signed the extension and revision of the Korea-U.S. Science and Technology Agreement last year with Secretary Tony Blinken to enable deeper, wider scientific cooperation between the two countries. We are now living in a time of artificial intelligence, quantum science, and synthetic biology, and not to mention space and nuclear engineering. So we have a great future of cooperation in this area. Now we have a very intensive exchange of education between two sides. I think that Korean students are the third largest population in the United States, next to China and India. And culturally, we have been influencing each other. Korean K-pop, K-drama, K-food, K-cosmetics, K-whatever influenced the United States, and American culture has been popular in Korea. I myself learned English from the American pop songs in my middle school and high school. Bee Gees and the Chicago's and Creedence Clearwater Revivals and Carpenters and Eagles and all this music I enjoyed. I still sing those songs because I cannot forget, because there was the one of the few ways to learn English. And now, young Americans and young overseas students learn Korean through BTS and Blackpink, the Korean language, in a very natural way, which is great because you're living in a digital age. And defense industry cooperation and arms export, the United States has promoted the growth of its defense sector by exporting advanced weapons and military equipment to South Korea. Now, Korea is number 8 defense products selling countries in the world, and we are becoming number 4 in several years of time. Because Korea is divided and we have to deal with a constant threat from North Korea, the government made efforts to develop our defense industries. And now the world is in flux. War in Ukraine, Israeli situation, and situation on the Korean Peninsula require the active support, security support, through better weapons, and now Korea can play its role in the international community. Now, this is the final part of my speech. President-elect Donald Trump and his upcoming inauguration in January present both challenges and opportunities for Korea-US alliance. Most of all, a stronger America First approach by the US may lead to increased trade pressure on key allies, not just on China, but a country like South Korea, which is having a trade surplus with the United States, through automobiles, electronics, and steel, as well as heavier pressure, as I said, on the Chinese product. The Republic of Korea is a trading country. We rely on our export for 40% of our GDP. And between Korea and the United States, automobiles takes up more than 35% of our total export to the US. So any US trade policy will have a direct impact on our trade relationship. Also, semiconductors and IT products occupy 50% of our South Korea's export to China. So if the US-China trade relationship becomes more conflicted, then we will have the double pressure from the United States and also our exports to China as well. So this could pose potential challenges for Korean companies exporting to the United States market and potentially limit economic cooperation between the two countries. So this issue needs to be discussed between Yoon government and the incoming Trump administration. Another potential challenge is defense cost sharing. President-elect Trump has previously called for increased defense cost sharing from allies, including South Korea, and this pressure may increase under the second Trump administration. As you may know, the Yoon government and the Japanese government under the Biden administration, the American government, recently agreed on the SMA, Special Measures Agreement negotiation, by raising South Korea's contribution by 8.3% for the fiscal year 2026. Nevertheless, President-elect Trump, during his campaign, mentioned that South Korea is a money machine and should be able to pay $10 billion, which is about 9 times bigger than the current amount. I think South Korea is not a money machine. We are a miracle machine. We make miracles through our hard work, spirit of innovation, education, and the will to succeed. We are spending more than $1 billion annually for the labor, logistics, and construction cost for stationing US troops in Korea. We are also spending 2.5% of our GDP on national defense, which is more than the ratio of most of U.S. treaty allies. So I think alliance is not about money matter, it's about value matter. And so under the common vision of global, comprehensive, strategic alliance, which the two countries have agreed to pursue, we need to find a reasonable level of defense cost sharing which are agreeable to both sides. Next one is North Korea. President Trump's approach to North Korea in the second administration is still uncertain and hard to predict. It could be either confrontational or it could be conciliatory. But I think if it is too confrontational or too conciliatory, then it would make some potential challenges to the coordination of our interests or our policies towards North Korea, because I think that North Korea policy should be principled, balanced, and coherent. And the important thing is for us to have a concrete and feasible roadmap of how to denuclearize North Korea, because without denuclearization, there is no guarantee for peace and stability, security on the Korean Peninsula. So I think that we need to sit down and talk on this issue as well. And finally is China. The Trump administration may intensify its approach to countering and decoupling from China. This may create challenges for South Korea as it balances our economic relationship with China on the one hand and our commitments to the Korea-US alliance. There is no question that Republic of Korea should stand with the United States in terms of ideological conflict, a geopolitical relationship, but we also have to take care of our existing economic partnership with China. Because Korean companies like Samsung Electronics, SK Hynix are investing heavily in China. Tens of thousands of Korean companies are already operating in China. So we need a stable supply chain relationship with China. So we need to talk on this issue as well in order for Korea to carefully assess the changing situation and pursue our economic and security interests. There are also opportunities under the Trump administration with renewed emphasis on military strength. For example, the expanded deployment of U.S. strategic assets or increased joint exercises could further solidify Korea's security. And in the first telephone conversation between President-elect Trump and President Yoon Suk-yeol recently, President-elect Trump mentioned America's shipbuilding industry, which has been declining. This issue, I think, is important for the future Republic of Korea, United States cooperation in maritime security, in increasing the U.S. naval power, and also revitalizing U.S. maritime transformation. I know this because I'm a former Navy officer of the Republic of Korea. I'm wearing a Navy tie today. According to Congressional Research Service, the U.S. Navy has now 296 battle force ships as of September, which need to be expanded to 381 ships, which the U.S. Navy wants. They prefer new force level to counterbalance the increasing size and capabilities of China's Navy, which is outnumbering the U.S. Navy. But this U.S. Navy's plan has not been making smooth progress, unfortunately, due to delays in deliveries, industrial base capacity constraints, and inflation and shipbuilding costs. The Republic of Korea possesses world-class shipbuilding technology. We manufacture the largest ships in the world, the oil tanker. We also produce ice-breaking ships, which can go towards the cold area. Only Korea and Russia have that technology. So we have the high level of quality and durability. And the time span and the production cost of shipbuilding in South Korea are about 1/3 of those in the United States. So the Korean shipbuilding company excels in productivity and cost efficiency, on time and on budget. So it also has the infrastructure and skilled workforce. So there is an ample potential for Korea and the United States to cooperate in the naval shipbuilding and also maritime transportation. Now, economic and security ties between the two countries under the second Trump administration, I think is also great. High-tech industries and defense capabilities will certainly grow in terms of their cooperation. And our country is now aiming to reach the status of G3 in the artificial intelligence technology, next to US and China. And it is already G5 in the areas of civil nuclear industry. We are building nuclear reactors in a country like United Arab Emirates, and Korea has recently concluded the preferred bidder status with the Czech Republic. And there are many European countries which want to enter into nuclear civilian peaceful nuclear power generation agreement with the Republic of Korea. So ROK and the United States should team up to expand into the overseas nuclear market, especially with the new technology, the small modular reactors, the SMRs, which we can develop and provide electricity to those countries in need. South Korea is the most robotized country in terms of industrial manufacturing. We have 1,000 robots for each 10,000 workers in our workplace. Second is Singapore. They have about 700 robots. We have 1,000 robots. So the manufacturing method is rapidly changing, and this figure is the highest in the world. So President-elect Trump's push for expanded manufacturing, restore American manufacturing capability, and the technological investment, I think is a good opportunity to Korea to provide support and bolster the American industrial competitiveness. Indo-Pacific strategy is another area of more greater cooperation between the two countries because of South Korea's increasing role as a key regional ally promoting peace and security in the region. And the Yoon Suk-yeol government is seriously committed to the rules-based international order, as I mentioned, and we are opposed to the unilateral change of status quo, especially by force. So we support the freedom of navigation and overflight in South China Sea, and we support peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, because it is important for peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. So, in conclusion, President Trump's re-election brings both challenges and opportunities for the ROK-US alliance as it does to the world, and Republic of Korea should navigate these dynamics with proactive and strategic diplomacy to deepen the alliance and maximize its national interest. In summary, I will tell you this global ranking of Republic of Korea. We are the 10th largest economic power in the world, 9th largest contributor to the United Nations, and also global energy consumption. Korea spends a lot of energy. We are the 8th largest defense exporters, 7th largest space technology power, 6th largest trade volumes, military power and nuclear power, 5th largest automobile production power, and electric cars competitiveness. 4th largest country in terms of internet penetration and the patent applications and registration. We are an inventive, innovative country. We have the third largest manufacturing competitiveness, and we spend second largest high proportion of research and development per our GDP, only next to Israel. And there are many firsts for Korea. We're the #1 Bloomberg Innovation Index consecutively, and we produce the largest number of memory semiconductors in the world. Plus, we have BTS and Blackpink. So, we are ready to contribute to the international community, working with G7 countries through our G7 plus diplomacy. And we would hope that one day Korea can join the G7, together with a country like Australia, whose economic power is almost comparable to Korea, to consolidate democracy, human rights, free markets, and rule of law, and human rights, based on strong, global, comprehensive, strategic partnership with the United States. Thank you for your patience. Thank you.
And to all the staff of GWIX and the IIEP, Kyle and Ravina and our student assistants, and to Kara for putting on today's event. So please join me in thanking them. So in our time remaining, I'd like to take questions from the audience in the room and online. And for those online, if you could put your questions in the Q&A box, that would be helpful. If I might, as moderator of today's talk, offer the first question. So you mentioned at the end of your presentation many challenges and opportunities for Korea. We now have counted most of the votes in the United States election and have discovered that the Republican Party of once and future President Donald Trump has now control over all of the branches of government, or both houses of Congress and the presidency at least. In contrast, President Yoon Suk-yeol in Seoul is the first South Korean president not to have his party ever in charge of the National Assembly in the majority. Similarly, Prime Minister Ishiba in Japan is now in a minority ruling party situation with his Liberal Democratic Party. And so I wonder if you could speak a little bit about the political challenge of this challenges going forward in the new Trump administration of this disparity between a unified government in Washington and divided governments in Tokyo and Seoul.
Yeah. Well, I've been in politics for many years, almost 16 years in the National Assembly, elected 4 times in metropolitan Seoul, so I know how unpredictable is politics. Sometimes you do well, sometimes you don't do well, ups and downs. In the Republic of Korea now, obviously the situation is not easy because it's a ruling minority. And if you want to pass the legislation and the budget in the National Assembly, you need to talk with the opposition side to come to a consensus. So I think that's the nature of politics, which is required to run the country. But one thing important is that no matter what happens in the domestic political landscape, the spirit and the principles of Camp David Agreement would and should remain effective, because that is the concept not based on everyday political realities, but on the fundamental core values that our countries are pursuing: democracy, free market, human rights, rule of law. And we also agreed to consult each other in case the common problem arises, to respond to the common challenges based on the joint efforts. So I think that this should be respected and be maintained in the future among the 3 countries. I hope Japan can steer its course well on the new government and also the new Trump government, and the United States because it also experienced the first administration some years ago. We know what are the common challenges and what are the strategies that we can develop together. So I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful that together we can change the world and move towards the better future based on trilateral partnership.
I think there are potential areas of agreement between the Yoon Suk-yeol's party and the opposition party in South Korea as well, especially on this U.S. ROK alliance. Yeah.
I mean, my party, People Power Party, is kind of conservative party, and as you may know, we support small government, big market, low tax, and strong security. And so, in that sense, we can have a good dialogue with the second Trump administration and find out the most desirable solutions to the challenges that we are commonly faced with.
Thank you. Let me open it up now to a question from the room. Why don't we go over here, John? Go ahead.
Hi.
Please identify yourself briefly and keep your questions short so that we can get as many questions as possible.
Okay, hi, my name is John Lee. I'm a student here at Elliott School, and I have a question about the semiconductor industry. So, like, Trump has publicly said that Taiwan has stole the semiconductor industry. The US wants to bring back the semiconductor industry back into America. And you also have mentioned that the importance of Chinese market in the Korean semiconductor industry, especially for the companies like Samsung and SK Hynix, which are both affected by the guardrails requirement of the Chips and Semiconductor Act. However, this act was enacted during the Biden administration. Do you think that Trump's new administration will be more aggressive in the way to restore the semiconductor manufacturing industry in the U.S.? And how will this affect the U.S. South Korea relationship?
Yeah, I think. Sorry. Yeah, I think we need to talk on what will be the best way to encourage the development of semiconductor industry in Korea and in Taiwan, and how to best accommodate the interest of the United States in restoring the economy and moving towards the high-tech capabilities. The United States needs Korean semiconductors, the memory conductors, and now the system semiconductors to run the economy. Because without those supply, the American high-tech industry cannot continue. So we have the great potential for cooperation there. But at the same time, we should be aware of the potential concerns regarding the national security in both countries, the United States and also Republic of Korea, to protect our high-tech intellectual property and to develop for the sake of the economic progress. So I think we can talk and find out the best solution to the problems that we are faced with. Taiwan's TSMC is an excellent company. They are our friends and rival at the same time. And so I think that through this competition and cooperation, Korea and Taiwan can develop the semiconductor industry, not only for the benefits of our own country, but for the benefit of the entire world.
Thank you. Let me take one more question from the room before I go to online. Yes, sir, over here.
Sir, my name is Don Kirk. We've been hearing that there's great concern in Korea about what President Trump will do about U.S. forces in Korea and about relationship with North Korea. I wonder if you share this concern, if there's a possibility that the U.S. may retrench, withdraw sharply from South Korea, and if there's a concern that perhaps Mr. Trump will engage in new talks with North Korea that will might affect the security of South Korea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirk. First of all, I think the most economic way of maintaining a U.S. overseas military base is to maintain the Camp Humphreys in Pyeongtaek. That's the largest U.S. overseas military base. Now, if the U.S. government wants to say, in a hypothetical case, to withdraw military base from the Korean Peninsula, where would you put this? Where would you put the Camp Humphreys in the United States? You have to build facilities and to provide economic assistance to the new military base. And what would happen if Korea is faced with, say, another security crisis by the North Korean offensive actions? I think that United States will come to help us because that's written in our mutual defense treaty. If one party is attacked, that is regarded as an attack on the other side. Therefore, the most desirable and feasible option and most economically efficient option is to maintain U.S. military base on the Korean Peninsula. And based upon that assumption, we are now strengthening the effectiveness of the extended deterrence, that is the activation of the U.S. nuclear power. But in case the crisis occurs on the Korean Peninsula, for example, and this is another hypothetical case, but by the nuclear blackmail or nuclear attack or offense by North Korea, then U.S. nuclear umbrella will be activated without delay and based upon prior consultation mechanism between Republic of Korea and the United States, which was written into the Washington Declaration and is now being prepared through the nuclear consultative group process. I think that's the best option for now that Republic of Korea and the United States can have. Again, the hypothetical case, if the US government for some reason decides to reduce or withdraw US troops from the Korean Peninsula, which I think is not going to happen, but then Korea should be able to defend our own country based on our potential nuclear capability. And already the public opinion in Korea favors such an option. But I think this is a hypothetical case, and the best option available and realistic is to maintain strong, extended deterrence between the Republic of Korea and the United States.
Okay, we're going to take one more question from the room and in the middle in the back there. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Hi, so I know that South Korea happens to be one of the largest investors in U.S. industry right now, and I'm kind of wondering what you think the implications of the election will be on that. Do you think if Trump starts to put more and more pressure on South Korea, how will that impact their investment in American industry?
Yeah, I think our Korean companies are investing into the United States heavily. The states like Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Tennessee, Michigan, and so on. And these companies, greenfield investment are creating jobs, decent jobs in the United States. Our trade and investment with the United States account for 450,000 jobs, direct or indirect, in the United States. So I think it should continue. And also, expansion of Korean investment into the United States is a way to avoid tariffs from the U.S. if Washington decides under the second Trump administration to raise the tariff 10% or 20%. And I think that direct investment, the expansion of Korean investment into the United States will be one way to reduce or minimize the impact of this tariff pressure.
Thank you. Kyle, I'm going to take a question from online from you. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of our guests online is hoping to change the view to widen it a little and asks, can Korea cooperate with India in bringing a revolution to reduce poverty in Asia?
Yes, India is our major friend and partner. We have concluded CEPA, the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with India, which I passed as the chairman of Foreign Affairs and Trade Committee. It's a country with enormous potential, with more than 1.4 billion population, and the determinations to succeed under Narendra Modi government to make it India initiative, I think is very impressive economy. So Korea will try our best to promote our trade and investment with India. We are already investing a lot into the Indian economy. For example, Hyundai Motor Cars in Chennai is producing almost 1 million vehicles per year, half of which is domestically consumed in India, and the other is being exported to Middle East and Europe. And that is counted as an Indian export to a foreign country. So already we are in a very close symbiosis between Korea and India for the economic development. We will continue to do so.
Thank you. I regret to say that we have time for just one last question. So the most eager hands, go ahead.
And one last one here.
Okay, two quick questions, please.
Speaker's choice.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm Doyle Kim, and ROK Navy officer and a first-year master student at the Elliott School studying space policy. First, I would like to express my great honor in meeting the former foreign minister who was also a senior in the Navy. I want to ask about balancing between ROK-US alliance and relationship with China. Regarding the ROK-US alliance, with the Trump administration taking office, deterrence on China is likely remain a central agenda in U.S. Indo-Pacific strategy. At the same time, Korea remains economically dependent on China, which is both critical trade partner and strategic channel for managing and addressing North Korea issues. Given these dynamics, how can Korea effectively balance its alliance with the United States and its relationship with China to sustain our GPS policy? I'd like to greatly appreciate your insight and perspective. Thank you, sir.
Okay, and we'll take this quick question and then.
Yes. My name is Guy Aragoni. I'm a retired Department of Defense employee, and my question is very similar to the Navy officer.
Yeah.
And that's from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs perspective. What is the impact of the improving relationships between China and Russia in the last couple of years, and how will that affect the Korean Peninsula? So it kind of builds off your question.
Small questions to
Okay.
conclude our
Yeah.
discussion here.
Well, I think those two are big questions. You can write a book on each question. On the first one, I mentioned briefly about China. China is our neighbor and a major economic partner. We've been dealing with China for thousands of years. And now we want to have a sound and healthy relationship with China. But at the same time, we have to be aware that China and Republic of Korea do not share same ideology. We have different political systems, so there are limits to our relationship. So, in order to maintain constructive, productive relationship with China, it is important that we should respect each other and produce mutual benefits. And it requires that China respects Korea's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and our cultural identity. I think that's very important. And I made that position clear to my Chinese counterpart when I had a meeting with the Chinese foreign minister. So we will continue to do so. The United States is our only ally. It's an ironclad blood alliance that we have. I think you cannot replace our Korea-US alliance is with any other thing. That is very certain, and we will continue to develop our alliance into the future based on our mutual trust and respect. Now on China and Russia, their relationship has been waxing and waning. And now I think it's not very comfortable because of Russia's recent military ties with North Korea. And traditionally, China was backing North Korea for economy, for energy and food, ideologically. But now, North Korea has made a wrong decision. They are sending troops to the war in Ukraine, which is very dangerous and which violates UN Security Council resolutions. And Russia is the permanent member of the UN Security Council, and they are violating the obligation by having this collusion, military collusion with North Korea. So I think they have to stop. And I guess China is also uncomfortable in watching the unfolding relationship between Russia and North Korea. That's one point. In terms of bilateral relationship, I think it's kind of competition and cooperation. China relies on energy support from Russia. There's a huge energy supply arrangement between the two countries, but at the same time, they have their own national interest and geopolitical priorities. So the relationship is a complicated one, which is made more difficult by North Korea. And I think it is having a negative impact on the peace and security on the Korean Peninsula, not just in Europe, but also in Korea, in Asia too. So I think that we should prevent this from happening further in order to guarantee our own peace and security. So we are faced with challenges, but we hope we can resolve it with the United States as a trustworthy ally. And we want to talk about it with the second Trump administration.
So I am very sorry to have to cut short this fascinating conversation here, but I'm glad you ended it on a somewhat positive note, given all of the challenges the U.S. and the ROK are likely to face in the coming years. I would like to thank all of you for coming today, and please stay tuned for further GWICS events, IIEP events, and East Asia National Resources Center events here at GW as we continue to monitor this challenging area of the world. It has been a great honor today to hear from former Foreign Minister Park Jin, and we really thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and speak to us at GW today. Please join me in thanking our speaker.